Welcome to this manufacturer showcase hosted by NYSERDA's Empire Building Challenge. Its purpose is to familiarize you with newer emerging technologies meant to facilitate decarbonizing our building stock and applicable across entire portfolios. Each session will be recorded and available upon request, and slide decks sent to all attendees. Each presentation will be 20 minutes, followed by 10 minutes in which the presenter will respond to your questions. We ask that you go on mute until then. And now it is my pleasure to introduce David Hutchinson and Michael Coburn of Tremco.
Great, thank you, Saul. And thank you to NYSERDA for this opportunity to kind of speak to this group, and appreciate everybody who's making the time to listen to us speak about our showcase, which is Tremco Building Overclad with Integrated HVAC. My name is David Hutchinson, Deep Energy Retrofit Development from Tremco CPG, and I'm joined by my colleague, Michael Coburn, the Program Manager for Offsite Solutions at Tremco CPG Inc. We're going to go through about 30 slides here and do a little bit of backstory, but primarily talk about the solutions and how over the last 3 to 4 years we've come to market, but also the lessons learned that have developed the further solutions now. And I'm going to have Mike answer a lot of the technical sides of it while I kind of take the bigger picture approach to it. So we look forward to kind of talking through this. And then for those that don't have an opportunity to ask a question at the end of this, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our contact information will be listed at the bottom at the end of the presentation. So to get started, I think for us, there is a little bit of backstory. The envelope is obviously a big portion of this. And for those on the call, I think this is no secret. But one of the things that we have found through the process is that we had to be really smart about how we approach the envelope and how we approach what solutions we brought to it. And for us, it really started with what type of solution did we want to bring to market? From our standpoint, for those that don't know Tremco, I'll give a little bit further backstory on it. We had 2 approaches. Did we focus on the light, simpler retrofits, lights, controls, new motors, short ROI? That was a big thing that people were interested in. Was how do we make sure that the benefits of this solution were met quickly with ROI? And we found quickly, when you start with the envelope, that is not the case. So we did dive full into this. And for those that know much about Tremco, we've been in panelization for a long time, but it has been primarily through our Drive-It subsidiary and primarily through new construction. So when we came into this, we thought about windows and the building envelope, which were 2 areas that we understood greatly. And what can we do to have the biggest support system for buildings that are trying to retrofit and meet a lot of the goals that are now upon us? So when you look at Tremco overall, between the glazing side of the business, the roofing, the building performance, and the joints and sealants, we felt we had a really good grasp on how do we tighten up the envelope, reduce energy consumption in the building, but also build in certain types of integration tools that allowed us to do this in a quicker, more meaningful fashion that also was beneficial to building owners, designers, and others, and subcontractors alike. The other thing we noticed was there was obviously a huge push for clean energy in the form of photovoltaics and others to give back energy to it. When we're talking about net zero and carbon reductions, they were a big portion of it. But as we all know in this call, if we don't do anything about the envelope, a lot of those solutions are going to fall short of our ultimate goals and also are going to cost us long term. So we want to make sure that we address what we thought was the biggest issue and the most complicated issue. And for those that have done previous pilots or attempted to, I'm sure you'll agree that the envelope presents some of the most complicated things. And I'm going to go through several of the reasons why, but most importantly, several of the solutions that we've come about as a result of it. So offsite construction is something that has become obviously more prevalent through modular building. But for our purposes, we're talking about panelization. We understood that compression of the construction schedule was a huge part, both from a cost standpoint, but also when you're talking about zones 4 and 5 in the Northeast with a weather standpoint, we needed to make sure that we could do a lot of the products offsite in manufacturing facilities. Enclose the building envelope more quickly, extend the construction season, eliminate cost of scaffolding, other tenting. Someone might want to mute their mic on that. Whoever's got a phone, thank you. Address skilled labor shortages, and then big one for us was assure quality control performance. When you're talking about the measurement that's required for a lot of these buildings and the costs associated with not performing up to the standard, we could not have these solutions be not great in the field. They had to come up basically perfect. And I'll have Mike touch on some of the ways that we've done that currently, but this is a big part of it, is making sure the quality control and performance met the standard that's required. This is just one example of how manufacturing and offsite solutions have helped speed up this process. Building in these controlled settings at floor height, where we have ability to bring labor from the outside inside, but also create a solution, and you will see foam being sandwiched in a proprietary product to allow us to have no thermal breaks in our solution that reach the building. And this is just stage one for us, which was, what is the panel solution that is going to make both the solution correct, but also allow designers to design the way they need to for long-term performance. After that, while leading with the envelope, the biggest thing was, how do we start pairing it with the other two things, or the major things that are happening: energy audits and physical needs assessment. When an owner starts this process, how early can we be engaged to make sure, again, integrated solutions are done and we are not backtracking or coming or reworking these solutions later on? Local Law 11, capital costs result in avoiding business as usual expenditures. How do we make sure that when we're talking about performance, we're also talking about tightening the envelope, we're also talking about laws and costs that owners are taking into effect as they go over there? Life cycle costs versus first costs. This is a big point of contention, I know, for building owners, is the return on investment. How do we bring solutions to the table that put all that capital up front and reduce those costs in the back end to make this a more financially solution for everybody? And then again, reducing the size of mechanical at the outset. We don't want to make sure that we're creating solutions now that have to be fixed later, or we're overspending at the front part of this. We want to make sure our solution makes sense from day one as well as day 50 afterwards. One of the biggest things we saw was typology. When we're investigating how we were going to integrate our solutions into the buildings, we were looking at 4 to 7 story masonry buildings that look pretty simple at the front end. We'll talk about why that's not always the case, but do we have areas for staging, access, and repeatable design? And a big part of that is, can we do it without displacing the tenant? And for us, that was an important part of this solution, was how do we continue to integrate more things into our panel design that allows us to not have to come back and displace that tenant or extend the amount of time that they're inconvenienced in their home. And this was the process. This is the flywheel of a standard DR process, which is cumbersome to look at and let alone to actually work. So starting at the energy analysis and energy modeling all the way to the long-term performance and maintenance, there are a lot of touch points in this process that are great collaborators, but this can be where a lot of the cost increases, but also where the design solution can continually find ways to stumble. And we wanted to make sure we reduced that, or at least consolidated a lot of these spokes of the wheel to make sure our process made more sense to everybody that was involved. The other part of it was creating solutions for future problems. The whole building approach. How do we meet these goals of the roof, glazing goals, the envelope goals? How do we make sure all those are working collaboratively and not working in spite of each other? Because if we focused on one aspect of this and then we oversize the other aspect of this, we are uselessly wasting money. And how do we make sure that this solution continues to compress to create the solutions we want, but also makes sense to the owner and design team? These are the roadblocks that we came up with. And I promise you, I'm getting to the solutions. I don't want to be a person that's over talking about only the problems. We want to show you what are the solutions that we felt made sense for this. The value engineering was the biggest one. The design intent to meet all these standards has continually been reduced because as everyone started getting out to the budgetary constraints, certain aspects of that solution disappeared. The ROI was difficult to determine. Multiple building typologies is the big one. We cannot have a one size fits all. It just doesn't work in this climate. The workforce training behind the need. How do we make a solution that is actually simple and easy for new contractors, new subcontractors to install? And can we, again, combine the workforce to doing one solution at one time? Installation was a big one. How do we simplify it? How do we use the existing structures we have to create solutions that make sense and are easily done? And we have my colleague, Mike, online. I don't know, Mike, if you want to add anything to this installation process to talk about what it made sense to make it easier to use and easier to work with.
Yeah, I mean, we had to come up with an installation process that was simple to use, but also flexible to use on a variety of different building designs and conditions. So, and we're going to get more into the weeds on the different panel solutions we have, but we were able to come up with a variety of different panel types and installation details that can accommodate just about any building facade that's out there right now, but also open up the labor force to a bigger selection of contractors who are able to actually install these panels. So taking something that was traditionally done by plastering contractors and opening up to different trades who can install these panel systems.
And again, using terminology and using systems that people understand. How do we make sure these joints are easy to work with? How do we make sure the attachment is easy to work with? We will not get into weeds on this because this is design stuff, but when we talk about simplification of process, this was a big part of it. Multiple typologies. One example is our work in California. That is a completely different typology than what we're used to seeing in the Northeast. So how do we look at these solutions and these types of buildings to maintain the same goals that we have across the country, but make sure our solutions mirror? So an example is a hybrid panel approach. And I'm going to have Mike talk a little bit more about the hybrid panel approach we bring to the table.
Yeah, and part of the value engineering process is making sure we're coming up with the most economical solution that solves all of the requirements for these specific buildings. So we were able to come up with a variety of CI panels that give the continuous insulation without any thermal breaks in the exterior facade. So we have lighter weight panels for your flatter areas, for the OPEC areas, for areas where you don't have to carry any loads and windows, things like that. But then we also have a heavier panel, which is our Revitalite panel, which uses a proprietary framing system so that there's no thermal breaks, but it's able to carry the load of the windows. And with this panel, we're able to offer even a variety of solutions. So if you need a cavity space between the existing facade and the new facade, we're able to provide a cavity space where you can run electrical, where you can run HVAC, different systems behind our panel without any or minimal tenant disruption.
So this is the example. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike, please.
No, yeah, I was just going the same way. So this is an example of a project where we were able to take a difficult building that was a wood frame building built in 1966. And I was actually on site on this job, and I can guarantee you nothing is straight on this building. This picture doesn't even do it justice. It's probably been through a bunch of earthquakes, and it's a cement plaster wood frame building. So we were able to come up with a hybrid approach with different types of panels to meet the specific needs, but still come in within budget. So you can see there we have a Revitalite panel that's flush mounted to the wall. There wasn't any need for a cavity on this project, but we were able to incorporate the window into the panel. So that way there was minimal tenant disruption. The new panel was put up with the window in, and all that was required was to demo the existing window and then tie it into the new panel system. So that's a Revitalite panel, but on areas where we didn't need to carry a load, we were actually able to use a continuous insulation panel, our Fedderlite M system, which is a lightweight CI panel that's going to weigh anywhere from 2.5 to probably 4 pounds, depending on the thickness, and give you that continuous insulation, the same aesthetics on the exterior of the building, but a more economical solution to fit the different needs of this project. And as you can see, I think it came out pretty nice. It's a very nice looking project that went from an ugly 1966 building to a new modern, much more efficient building facade.
Thank you. So we've solved one problem through this process, right? Like, how do we look at the different typologies, come up with solutions that through what Mike was saying, a hybrid approach to make sure that we have the right standards and energy performance, but also it's something that the contractors can wrap their heads around and design for, right? So we wanted to make sure that we did that. So now we've reduced that process by allowing the window to be integrated into the panel solution and the contractor. We have one contractor on site doing all the work, right? So this flywheel, again, has started to reduce and getting more and more condensed than what we're doing here. The next part of that was, how do we do things with integrated solutions, right? One of the big things that's on the masthead of this presentation is HVAC. How do we make sure that our panel solution can combine another important task into this wall solution? And one of the things that Mike alluded to before was this slide right here. Mike, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to demonstrating what's on this page, but how do we solve a problem within our panel that allows us to do things with the mechanical and the HVAC?
So we've come up with a panel and an attachment system that's going to give you a continuous insulation facade that's going to give you R values up to 27 or higher, depending on the panel design, but still create a cavity where you can do a lot of the energy retrofit for your HVAC system, electrical system, kind of whatever you need on the exterior of the building. This is going to minimize any tenant disruption. So for instance, on this project, you can see here, they were able to run all their ducting, plumbing, and any mechanicals that they needed on the exterior of the building. And then our panel system was mounted with a 6-inch cavity. So it overclads all of this new system. And we're actually able to incorporate different parts of that system into our panel design.
Excellent, thank you. So as we said, we wanted to keep staging and improving what we're doing. So then it became partnerships. And for me, for those in this call that are familiar with Hydronic Trail, I'm sure you were, because they've continued to push the envelope, pun intended, on what we're doing to retrofit these existing buildings. So using design like we showed in that previous slide to allow piping to go down the wall, but also integrate a mechanical system, an HVAC unit, into a panel design. So once again, one stage for this entire process. So we went from trying to figure out how to field apply EIFS onto a wall, to building it off site, to building it with window in the unit, to building it with piping possibilities and cavity, to building with HVAC. And so it continues to stage into a system that, again, reduces the amount of workforce on site, but also speeds up the process and allows us to design for the long term as opposed to the short term. So we're not coming back and having to figure out how to redo X, Y, or Z in this. This is all leveraging technology as well as some ingenuity in that process. And this is just an example. This is a slide that everyone's going to get this, so I'm not going to go into depth because I think it's a rough slide to see. But what we're able to do with these systems now is look at our envelope, look at the window assembly, look at the air tightness, look at the HVAC, all as one system, right? So when we're talking about trying to meet long-term energy performance and also meeting cost standards as well as maintenance standards, which I know is a big concern for building owners, now we're looking at one system for the entire envelope that allows everyone to start thinking about their ROI, their upfront capital costs, their upfront performance. All those things start to get more and more condensed. So as I continue to show you that flywheel, we're continuing to shrink that down so we have a process that's more integrated and more collaborative as we go about it. And this is the last stage of it, right? The final goal is integrated systems and design on collaborative projects. So this is an example of a project we're currently working on with Cycle Architecture in New York City on 50th Street. And this involves integrated mechanical design, integrated panel design, integrated design intent. And that is something that I've been pushing for seems like a decade, as far as it's really hard to have these solutions without every component, whether it's manufacturing or design team and owner, on the same page on how are you going to bring this solution to an actual building and not have to go back and forth and do the value engineering and doing all the things. If you have hybrid panels, you have integrated design, you have a solution that can fit all 4 walls in this building, but also be transferable to upstate, to the city, to California. And that's been one of the most fun processes that's happened in this, is how do you make what started as a very one-stop shop into a complete collaborative effort at the end of it. And it feels like that is the kind of the next etymology for both building owners as well as manufacturing and design, is to work in a more collaborative environment that allows design intent to go from process to the ending and have integrated systems with the performance that we're all looking for, and hopefully in a cost-effective manner.
Yeah, and one of the advantages of Tremco and the solutions we offer is twofold. It's very customizable. So we kind of hit on, we've got a variety of panel systems to meet the specific needs, but we also have the ability to customize different panels to meet different facades, different buildings, things like that. So we have a whole team that includes, you know, myself, David, Stephen, and a whole team behind us that's able to come up with panel designs or modifications to existing panels to meet specific needs and integrate different components into our panels. The other advantage is Tremco has a lot of that under house. So we have the finishes, we have the panel systems, we have the sealant materials, we have the air moisture barriers. We have all that as part of our Tremco construction products group. So we're able to bring everything from the roof to the subfloor products that we offer at Tremco to create an energy efficient solution that's going to be easier to install in a single source.
Thank you, Mike. So I know that is our time at the 20-minute mark here. We have all of our contact information on the screen for those that are looking at it currently, as well as that are going to be looking at in the future in the video. If there are any questions, please, I don't know if Saul, if you're moderating it or not, please proceed to ask them. We'll be happy to stay on here for the next 10 minutes for any questions. For those that don't have questions now but may come up in the future, please do not hesitate to email or call us, and we'll be happy to respond and set up a call if necessary to talk through some of our solutions as well as anything you heard today. So thank you again for the time.
Great, thank you so much. So if anyone in the audience has a question, please unmute yourself, and then after go back on mute.
Hi.
Anyone have
I
any
do have a
questions?
question. I'm curious, in addition to or instead of hydronic shell, are you currently working with any other equipment manufacturers in terms of making sure or pre-integrating products such as packaged terminal heat pumps or other type of heat pump products into your cladding product? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. At this time, we've met with several companies in this space. This is one that is probably most far down, but I will say this, and I'm sure I can speak for Mike on this. We're always open to any type of manufacturer or company that is looking to do these integrated solutions. I think for us, it only makes sense to have varied approaches to what we're doing based off of the building typology and based off the solution. So I think it's a valid question, and we've had several conversations over the years, but it's really about where they go and what everyone's ultimate goals are.
Yeah, and I mean, we're always looking for different solutions in this space that we can integrate into our panels. So, right now we're researching what's out there, trying to keep kind of our finger on the pulse of new products and different things that come out there that might be worthwhile to integrate, and we're always looking to do that. And then we're kind of doing it on a project by project basis as well, and that's where the ability to customize the panel design or tweak panels is awesome, because we're able to meet the specific needs to a specific project and maybe new solutions or new technology and incorporate it into our panels.
Thank you for that. Can I have a follow-up? So with that in mind, do you have any, let's say, guidance in terms of for each project, each envelope project, what would be the constraints that let's say a heat pump solution have to be able to conform to and able to be, let's say, integrated into your cladding products?
So, I mean, we don't have any specific constraints. I mean, obviously, we would have to look at the engineering of weight, attachment, all that stuff is going to come into play if it's going to be integrated into our panel. That's where we have, the different panels that can offer the different solutions. If there's not a lot of weight requirements, if we're really not attaching anything to it, we can use that Fedderlite M panel, the continuous CI panel. But if you're going to need to be attaching stuff to it or integrating different products into it, we might have to increase the framing. So it's more of an engineering requirement, but we look at those on a project by project basis. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, that was helpful. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from the audience?
Can you share a little bit about what your installation process looks like and your partnerships with Workforce?
Yeah, so the installation process really kind of starts at the beginning, and at the beginning we're going to try and get an accurate representation of that existing facade, whether it be through a laser scan, field dimensions, existing drawings. We need to have a good idea of what that facade is, what it looks like. And then what we'll do is we'll take that, we'll kind of figure out what panel fits best in each situation, depending on loads, R value requirements, all that stuff we take into consideration and try and come up with the most economical panel solution. The installation process really depends on which panel and the project requirement. So if we're mounting straight to the existing facade, we have, it's pretty much, to kind of simplify it down, a tongue and groove. So you have an S rail and a Z rail, and they're going to kind of latch into each other. So you would mount the Z rail on the wall, and then the panels are going to key in with some mechanical fastening. If you need a cavity, to create a cavity between the existing facade and the back of the new facade, we have a patented attachment system that is similar, where the panels are going to key together, but we also developed an attachment system where you mount a bracket on the wall, and then there's a bracket mounted onto the panel, and it creates that cavity in the field. And the mechanical fastening is all done through the top of the panel. So that way you would start at the bottom and kind of work your way up the building.
And do you have partnerships with workforce or training that you provide for on-site installation?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I mean,
that's
yeah,
one
go
of the,
ahead, David.
yeah, no, that's one of the ongoing processes with this, is collaborating with contractors early on in this process that have an understanding of carpentry or panel installation, but if they do not, working on a training plan. Well, our biggest goal since the beginning of this is to expand that workforce, because candidly, this is a new process for most contractors, and there is some fear of putting things on the side of buildings if they've not done that before. So we do have a training facility in Cleveland, as well as individuals around the country that are working on this. So we are always open to subcontractors looking to be a part as a design team as well as an install team, because that is one of the limitations of this right now, is a workforce that's ready, willing, and able to install these panels.
Yeah, and we're in the process of developing an installation training program. Like David said, we have a facility in Cleveland where we can test all these panels and do installation training. We also have a training facility in Dallas that's a brand new kind of state-of-the-art building with a great training facility, where we'll actually educate the contractors. Again, it's kind of been on a project-by-project basis so far, but educate the contractors, make sure we're there showing them how to install, what the process looks like, and actually walk them through that.
Yeah, so just one last question. Do you have, even considering that it is a project by project approach, do you have can you share with us any of the lead time that is typically involved in one of your projects?
That's tough to answer, because you're right. It's a project by project, right? If we're doing a small 2-story apartment complex like we showed you in Corona, it's going to go a lot quicker than if we're doing a 7-story complex in New York City. But typically you've got that design phase where we're going to be scanning the building, getting all the dimensions, and that whole process. And I'm just going to kind of throw out some rough numbers on there. That's the design phase, where we're going to get dimensions, shop drawings, panel tickets, and all of the back end work before we build the panels. You're probably looking at a 2 to 4 month process, kind of just depending on the project. The actual manufacturing of the panels, that usually goes pretty quickly. Again, it depends how many panels we're making, how difficult, but you're looking at anywhere from, I would say, 10 to 18 weeks to manufacture the panels. But that's to completion of all the panels. Usually there's about a 3 to 4 week ramp up period, and then we'll start shipping panels to the site in sequence so that they can be installed.
And do you have an installation metrics involved, like how many square feet, how many facade coverage per day, that kind of stuff?
Again, it really depends on the panel types. The lightweight CI panels are going to go up a lot quicker than full framed integrated Revitalite panel. And so we kind of look at it more on a panel basis. If you're doing a lightweight CI panel, you should be able to hang anywhere from, I would say, 8 to 20 panels a day, depending on size and what you have out there on site. The Revitalite panels are going to go a little bit slower, but usually guys are hanging anywhere from 8 to 15 of the full weight Revitalite panels per day.
Thank you.
Great. Well, we are at time. Thank you so much for presenting. And as David and Michael mentioned, if you have any follow-up questions, you're free to reach out to them at the information provided. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.